Right, here I'm going to explain how you should deal with your brush between each application of paint. Right, here we go. We'll start with actually picking up the paint to apply to the canvas. Pick it up in this way as a stipple, and then just take the top of it off. So if there's any build up on the tip of it, you're removing it. You don't want to put too much at any one time onto the canvas. Right, in between each coat, if you have to apply more of a different tone, then get rid of it this way. Don't have to get rid of all of it, because we should be fairly close to the tone that we require for the canvas. You just need to get rid of most of it. And then if you pick up somewhere else, pick up again with a stippling action. Knock off the tip with your cloth once or twice, right, just to take off any surplus, excess, and then apply it again to your canvas. And that's just about it. Well, that was both interesting and embarrassing. I did some tests and I actually got the colour fairly close. I did it around the edges here. I'll go through that process again later. But to take that paint off ready for the next application, I use a little piece of masking tape to cover up the wet paint that I've just applied. I don't rub it off with a cloth or anything like that, because that would just spread the disaster. So I put something on like that. Right, rubbed it with my fingernail, and to my horror, I found that paint came off. The original mark, the paint came off. The problem is with that is that if I apply a covering layer, it will mix with that colour and it won't be true. That will just give me another problem. So look, I'm going to take as much off as possible. With masking tape. Do this until it actually stops coming off. Right. And it's still coming off. Really embarrassing. Still coming off. Tiny bits. Right, now I'm going to go and get a Q-tip and apply it to that. Just to judge whether it is actually wet or it's just coming off as flaking paint. You can still see that there is a mark there that has to be covered. Anyway, let's go and get a Q-tip. Here I am back with a Q-tip. Now, I'm not going to remove that paint with a Q-tip. I haven't added any solvents to this. The objective is to actually just see if I can determine if it's wet or we've just got dry paint flaking off. So I'm rolling it, a bit of pressure. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, I'm still getting blue off of that. Still get Phthalo blue's fairly slow drying paint, but not normally this slow. I suspect it just isn't laying properly on the surface. And what we've got is actually dry paint flaking off. Right, so what I'm going to do is going to see if I can remove that, the vast majority of it. Guys, where is it gone? Right, there it is. With masking tape. Amazing how useful masking tape can be in the painting process. This essentially. Right, I'm going to see if I can get into the grain. Right. Like that. And it's almost gone. Right. This doesn't please me that much because it's not much of a demonstration of getting rid of a stain. But what I will do, as we'll go through the process, because that little bit needs to be dealt with anyway. So, with my little brush, you see that I got some paint left on it from when I was testing. Well, I get rid of that. I don't wash the brush. I actually just wipe it off with a cloth. Here we are, a clean white cloth. Right, now wipe that hard. Right, wipe that hard. Right, till it almost disappears. Right, scrub it on that. You don't want to put terps on it because that just will complicate the process again. Right, here we go. Taking that palette colour that we think we established with the binary shot, I'm just going to apply that to the area. It's almost gone, but you stipple it in. Right. And let's put it this way. And other areas on the painting where it looks worse than that. Now I'm going to tap it in with my finger. As the way is we do. Now that's good enough. Because the paint's gone that was offending it, I'll just brush that over a bit. You'll be hard pressed to find that. Now the colour you're trying to get rid of, I believe, is olive green. Olive green is a fairly slow drying paint, and you might be able to get it off, or the vast majority of us do suggest you try that. You might be able to get the majority of that off with masking tape. Let's go and see if we can if it'll also deal with the mark up the top. So we're going to take the camera up. Yes. Get a bit further up. Alright. Here we go. Something up the top there. I'll have to get rid of that later. Alright. Now if the same thing happens to you with a Q-tip, I would advise that you get as much of it off as you can with masking tape. So it's still coming off. That's coming off. Right. As much as you can off with masking tape, because you really don't want that mixing with the paint that you're applying. So more masking tape across there. God, it's almost gone. I suspect yours won't be as easy a task. The area's bigger for a start. But right, okay, let's get back to the brush process. Again, here, but I stipple. I don't paint so much as stipple. I put that on. Now we're higher up in the sky, right? So that's actually going to be bluer, right? So I put this on just to demonstrate when it goes wrong, and I can't find where it was. Okay, so this argument's saying this was there. You see, that's no good. It's not the same colour as down here. No, same tone as down there. So that's going to have to come off. Now, how would I do that? Again, what I really should have done is there's quite a blob there. I should have wiped that first on my cloth. Should have wiped it first on my cloth to take the excess paint off, and then I would have applied tiny little bits like that. Tiny little bits like that. Right. Okay, let's take that bit out with the brush. Right, okay then what I do, if it's not right, I apply the tape. Have these things ready for use when you start the work. Okay, see that's mostly gone. Right, another piece of tape. You don't have to get it completely right, because you will be going over it with the right, or hopefully the right colour eventually. But you'd have to do this with every attempt, right, to make sure that you're not mixing paint, you're just applying over the top. Right, okay then. You can see that's almost gone. That's gone to the point where I don't give a damn. There's going to be so many fluctuations in the actual colour that something is a little bit white in a sky like that. I'm pushing it in with my fingernail. It's just going to be, could just be a representation of that's aerial perspective. But actually I think I have to do something about that because it is too white. No, I think there are other areas on the canvas where it's worse than that. I'm going to leave that at that, because I think I've shown you all the principles of removing it. Or should I? Should I actually try and get it really close to the colour? Okay then, let's close to the tone. Let's get back onto the mixing tray and start again. Right, again with the binary chop, and hopefully we'll end up with a match somewhere between two colours. Let's get a chop that again. Right, unfortunately, get a bit more difficult to get the colour right as I dealing with smaller amounts, smaller and smaller amounts. I think a bit more. Right. Now hopefully the true tone somewhere between there and there, right? If we're really lucky, it will be spot on there, but I doubt it. Alright, I'm going to test this off camera again, and when I've got closer, I'll come back and I'll show you the process of painting again. Well, as it turns out, it was just a tiny bit too blue. And this was where the binary chop comes into play, as we said before. As I said before. Take half of that. And I do, when I say a tiny bit, I do mean a tiny bit. I take half of that. Right. Wipe my brush with toilet paper, and I take a very tiny bit of that, and that should take it down enough. Right. Well, if I spread that out a little. And spread this out a little. Spread that out a little. Right. I know my true tone, lies in between there, those two, or lies in between those two, right? Or even in between those two. And the job that we're going to do now is find out what or which. Now, as I said, I wipe between each mix, I wipe my brushes with the tissue, toilet paper, tissue. I think toilet paper is cheaper. Right, throw those away. And every time I apply the paint to the brush, I wipe it quickly with a rag. Right, now I wipe off the paint from the last application. I don't wash the brush. The whole process, you do not wash the brush. Always wipe it. You don't want terps getting in and causing a whole lot of problems. Right, now take the paint, slip it onto the end of the brush. Right, look at it, and then just dab it on there, just to remove any build up on the tip, because you are applying tiny bits of paint. So there you go, that's ready to apply to the canvas, and we'll give it another go. Alright, here we go. Stippling in. That's a bit dark. Right, well, I won't continue with that. Taking a little bit from the light. Right. 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 A fair bit from the light now. I'm going to put that over the top. Bearing in mind there's dark underneath that. Put masking tape. I think that's good enough. I use surgical gloves. Means I can tap that in without getting it on my fingers, and then clean the dirt gloves if I need. Right. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna move up to the last problem we had. The tiny pieces up the very, very top of the canvas. Right. 2 bits there. Right. Now I think, because we're moving up the canvas, and this canvas is graduated, dark to light, top to bottom, then we should be able to apply a small bit of paint, the darker one, the darkest one we produced, to that area, and make that disappear. Right. And here's the darkest blue first of all, and it's just a bit too light. You see, wipe that. Using those 3 tones means to make that disappear, right? Well, from any reasonable distances disappear, but there are many flaws in the surface of this canvas anyway, right, that just add to the cover. And I'll probably sort these out later if I ever get a buyer for it. Bearing in mind, this blue we're talking about isn't dry. I think we established that, so I could actually take that off with masking tape. I'm choosing to actually overpaint it. Now you'll be doing everything on a much larger scale, and that's good enough for that. You'll be doing things on a much larger scale, right? But you won't really have to contend with too much variation in the tone. You'll be dealing in one area, and I think it's about one tone. But what you might have problems with is that the olive green, I believe that's present there, it's not really dry, or it's not properly adhered to the canvas, right? It might be scuffed on at some point, and not worked into the weave of or let's say the tooth of the canvas. So it's not exactly, it won't be, I don't think, a proper fixture to the canvas. And I think what you try to do is first remove that with masking tape, right? Remove as much as you actually can with masking tape. Test it with a Q-tip. You might have a problem then, as much as this is, I'm working with a canvas that's on board, right? You'll be working with a canvas that is stretched, so there will be give every time you do it. But you should be able to work it out. With a Q-tip will tell you if the paint is dry or not. It looks as if I just lifted the paint off of there by messing with it. Now let's put it back on again. Right. Not dark enough, probably. What you're trying to do is lay out on the top, not brush, stipple it in. Right. Okay. Right. Wiping the brush on a rag every time I go back to the palette. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, that's gone far enough. For this exercise, you've seen the principle, how to do it. Yeah. So, things to remember are, first of all, test with a Q-tip to see if you can lift the paint, and then lift as much as you can with masking tape. Between each mixing of colours, and if you do the binary chop, clean your palette knives with the tissue paper, and then when you apply the paint, right, as you pick it off the palette with the brush, take the excess off the top of the brush with a cloth. Just tap it onto a dry white cloth, and then apply it as a stipple. Take the paint off the palette as a stipple, apply it to the canvas as a stipple, right? And between each incorrect application, right, then wipe your brush with a cloth. Don't wash the brush. Don't wash it in terps. Wipe it with a cloth. Right. The other concern we have, if you like, is that you might not be able to get this on one application of paint. You might have to wait until the paint that you've applied has dried. That means you'll have to come back. Right. Now what I do in this case is to cover the paint that I've prepared with cling film, right? Because you know those colours are correct, right? But if you cover those colours with cling film, they'll dry slower than that which is on the canvas, and you should be able to apply another coat within about 3 days, 2 to 3 days. But don't try and do it the next day, because the paint will still be moist, and then you'll start with a mixing process, or you might even, as I demonstrated there, take off the paint that you'd previously put on, which you don't want to do. What you're trying to do is add a few layers and cover up the marks. So that's about it. If I can't think of anything else, I'll add it to the end of this video. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as this video is concerned, that is finished. Okay then, just to finish off, I'll show the process of putting cling film on what you've got. Not that difficult. Not really worried about the tube colours. You probably do a better job at this than I did. Now the reason I'm doing this is that you don't want to be mixing these colours again. You know they're very close, so you want those colours to remain liquid until you have to apply another coat, and it's the only reason you're doing this. So put that over the top, touch it as least as possible, as long as you keep fresh air away from it. It should stay okay for up to about a week to 10 days. That's what I do, and I'll put that aside just in case we have to apply another coat. That about finishes it.